So a few months ago, I saw this video, and this creator was explaining why some personal finance content creators don't focus on low income money advice. And the reasons were completely valid. And as I'm watching their video, I kind of started thinking about my own experience with giving that type of advice, because over the years, I've done a few videos, not a lot, but I've done a few videos on how to save money on a low income, how to save money if you're broke, how to save money if you're poor, and I use that term very loosely. And anytime I've done a video on that topic, I've always gone to it with the mindset of being very empathetic and realizing that anyone who's watching that video and they're here because they are low income and they're looking to save money, they're not working with a lot. And there's a lot of stuff that they're not going to be able to do. When you watch a lot of money saving videos, a lot of those videos focus on overspending, because for a lot of people, that is the main issue. There are a lot of people, even though they cry broke, even though they say I'm living paycheck to paycheck, if you were to go and look at all of their income, all of their monthly expenses, it might tell a different story. And with that being said, if someone is truly low income and they have an income problem, the tips that are given to a person who has an overspending problem are not necessarily going to work. That's something I'm aware of, and I feel that a lot of other personal content creators are also aware of that. And with that being said, you have to go into those videos with that mindset. But even though there's a lot that can be said to help someone save money on a low income, personally, I've kind of backed away from those types of videos. And the reason being is because, in my experience, from what I've observed, those type of videos, they are always received with the biggest pushback. I realize that the situation for people who have a true income problem is difficult, because it is hard to dig yourself out of a hole when you're not working with a lot. And for that reason, I do feel that I've always made a conscious effort to give tips that are very, very duplicatable, that are simple, and are basically tips that anyone can do regardless of where you are financially. But it doesn't always matter. And this is something that I've noticed across the board. So it can occur with short form videos, it can happen with long form, it can happen with static carousel posts on Instagram. It doesn't matter. The tips in those videos just aren't always well received. And I know the reason why, because if you have a true income problem, if your income is so low that you can't even cover the basics, it doesn't matter how many money saving tips you watch. It doesn't matter how many frugal living videos you watch. You can't save what you don't have. I might say something like, make it a point to save $5 a week, which is something that, a lot of people can do. For some people, that can be just removing 2 items from their grocery list in order to make it happen. So, I feel that that's something that's pretty much within reach for a lot of people. But again, it doesn't always matter, because if I say something simple like save $5 a week, I will have people in the comments saying, I don't have $5. And here's another example of something that actually happened. I remember one time giving a tip saying how before you check out at the grocery store, or maybe if you're at another store, take one look at your cart just to make sure that you really need everything that's in there, and maybe just remove an item. And whatever item you removed, make a conscious effort to transfer that money into your savings. Really simple, really easy. Again, a tip that just about anyone can do. But no, I was wrong, because now I have people saying that I'm forcing them to go hungry, or if there was something that they could have taken out of their cart, they would have already done it. And then there was the time that I suggested doing a simple bank account challenge, where basically every day you go, you look at your bank account, you look at the previous day's ending balance, and whatever the last digit is of that balance, you transfer that amount into savings. So if your ending balance was $35.25, you transfer $5 into savings that day. The next day, if your ending balance is $12 and say 11 cents, you transfer $1 into savings. But then if your ending balance is say $25.30, that particular day you don't transfer anything. And again, the whole idea is really to just get you into a savings habit, to make it automatic. And by doing those daily transfers, oftentimes you'll move money over that you won't even miss. There are no hard or fast rules, obviously, and of course not every tip is going to apply to every person's life, which is why in a video you might have 7 to 10 tips. Take what you can use, leave what you don't. You know, I think that's pretty obvious. But again, I've been wrong about that too many times. So let's say you have a video with 10 tips on how lower income people can save money. And this is no exaggeration. I've had this exact scenario happen to me. I am not making this up. So you have 10 tips here. Somebody might choose to zero in on tip number 9. So they decide that tip number 9 is unrealistic. It's not going to work for them, and they might feel that it's not going to work for anybody else too. So then they run to the comments, and then they will write a thesis on why tip number 9 is unrealistic and how it's tone deaf. Tip number 9, keep that in mind, because before tip number 9 there was 8 other tips. So you're not commenting on those, which means that you watched the whole video up to this point, likely agreed with those tips, got to number 9 and decided that that wasn't going to work and that's unrealistic. And because of that, the whole video is now null and void. I mean, it doesn't make sense in my brain, but that's the type of stuff that comes up on a regular basis when you cover this particular topic. And it doesn't happen that often with other money saving videos. And I'll never forget this one experience I had a few years ago when I first started making content. And I've mentioned it here multiple times in the past, but I had this person, they either DM'd me or left a comment, I can't remember. But I remember they were heated, okay? That's probably an understatement. But they were basically saying how they've watched several money saving videos and they feel that all the videos say the same thing, and they hate the fact that personal finance content creators like myself never offer tips to help people who are in their situation. And to give you a little background, their situation was basically they made $800 a month. Let me repeat that. Their income was $800 a month. And they are wondering why finance creators do not give tips to help them. And even though that was probably the most outrageous comment that I've gotten on this topic, there have been others that have been pretty similar. And it was at that point that I was like, you know what? I don't think this is a topic that I'm gonna be touching on often. Not saying that I'm never gonna do another one on it, because at the end of the day, there is only so much frugal living, coupon clipping, and cutting back that you can do. And if you have already done all of that, and if you are already spending money only on your basics and your needs, and you still cannot get ahead, you don't need to watch any more money saving videos, especially if they haven't been working for you. It's time to turn the page, and the focus, in my opinion, should really be content and videos about how to increase your income. And there's something else I wanted to bring out here that I completely forgot about, but in the end, I just feel that this topic is just not naturally my lane, because in order to go there, it's almost like you have to dig a little bit more on the extreme frugality side as far as your tips. And in all honesty, as a long-term strategy, I do feel that that could potentially be more unrealistic, frustrating, and even unsustainable than what I have been recommending. So for that reason, I just leave it alone altogether. Cost of living is what it is, and it doesn't look as if it's getting better anytime soon. So if you're in a situation where you cannot keep your head above water, you are drowning, you just don't know how you're making it from month to month, yeah, it's time to do something differently. Because if you keep consuming money saving tip videos, frugal living videos, and you're not getting anywhere, you're just gonna get angrier. How to increase your income, how to earn passive income, how to build your skills, how to improve your resume, how to improve your interview skills. Because based on where you are today, that is the only content realistically that's going to move the needle.